So welcome to the Deep Dive Series presentation. Typically, we start off our sessions by going through the agenda. We do a bit of background and introduction. We talk about the problem, our solution to it, go through the core financial statements. We move on to a record creation exercise where we show you how exactly records can be created, and then we do the discussion. At the very end, we gather your feedback. It's really important for us to know how our clients think that we're doing and how they think we can improve. So this is a very important part of the session for us as well. So starting with the problem. As you know, many small and medium-sized enterprises make up the majority of privately owned businesses in Africa. The current estimates stand at around 90%. Now, despite this large number, lots of these businesses are limited in how they can grow. And one big reason for this is a lack of access to credit in the form of loans, grants, and investments. So when you're trying to access these kinds of resources for your business, it's really important that you have accurate financial statements. Now, many businesses in Africa are unable to keep these financial statements. The reason for this being they don't have a clear understanding of how exactly they can go about this. They don't know the value of it, and they don't have many incentives to do so, or the current tools that are out there are either too difficult or too expensive for them. So what our solution does is it addresses each of these key concerns. What we offer is an online bookkeeping portal. It's accessible both online and via SMS. There's a lot of value to keeping things online and keeping them in what we refer to as the cloud. Sort of online systems where you can log in wherever you are and access your information. It keeps it safe, it keeps it secure, it facilitates collaboration. We do recognize, though, that on the African continent, access to the internet is not always constant. As a result, we have SMS integration for the tool. And what that allows you to do is to take your phone, any basic phone that you have, it can be a smartphone, it can just be a regular old phone, and you can text daily revenue and expense records to your account. So on those days when you just don't have time to get online, or if you can't afford to go online every day, you can still keep your records by texting them to your account. We also offer publications. We have a book that we recently published, which guides you through the business plan writing process. We also offer some more custom consulting services, and you can reach out to us, go to our homepage, and get our contact information from there to reach out to us to ask some more questions about the services we can provide for you in that respect. Focusing more specifically on the online bookkeeping portal, it simplifies the bookkeeping process. You just put in basic revenue, expense, and salary information, and it generates the full set of financial statements for you. As I mentioned earlier, it's accessible both online and via SMS, and it generates the full set of financial statements for you. We are really committed to helping our customers succeed. So we have our monthly deep dive series where we do step-by-step training with you. And as I mentioned earlier when I directed you to our events page, we do have smaller training sessions for groups of 5 or more that can be arranged at your convenience if you're not able to make it to our sessions. We really do endeavor, though, to make the monthly sessions as accessible as possible. You can attend in person if you're in Ghana, or you can register to attend virtually, so whatever is most convenient for you. And so at the end, combining all of these things, Start Smart is really a business development platform that's customized for African businesses. If you'll give me one moment, we're encountering a slight technical challenge, so let me get to that and I will continue with the presentation. Sorry about that, and thanks for your patience. So moving on to the core financial statements. So as I mentioned, one of our core products is our online financial management portal. But before we get started using the portal, I thought it would be really helpful to talk a bit about these financial statements and what exactly they mean. So at the moment, we have the cash book and the salary statement up and running, and over the next few months, we plan to have the cash flow, the balance sheet, and the income statement, along with a number of other really great tools fully functional. At the moment, though, you are able to log on, create an account, and at the very least, update both your revenue, expense, and salary records, so the basic information is captured. So moving on to the definitions of these financial statements. So what the cash book does is it allows you to record your daily transactions, so your revenues, your expenses, What is it that you're selling? How much of it are you selling, and how much money are you making from it? What is it that you're buying to help you run your business? How much are you buying, and how much are you spending on it? Then there's the salary statement. So one thing that lots of business owners forget is that even when you are the only one working within your business as the business owner, you still have to give yourself a salary. Otherwise, you're not able to tell how much money is left over for you to save, for you to invest, for you to expand your business. So even if you're working for yourself, even if you have no other employees, it is important to record your salary. And what the salary does is it allows you to track the money that's paid to your employees. Now you might wonder, apart from bookkeeping purposes, why is it important for me to keep salary records? Well, salary records help you to find out if those that you've hired, let's say you do move on from having yourself as your only employee and you hire other people to help you manage your business, you need to know how effective those people are. So based on the additional money that you're spending on hiring people, is there additional money that's coming into your business? How much, and is it meeting your expectations? Now moving on to the other statements that I discussed, the cash flow, the balance sheet, and the income statement. So these three statements, coupled with the cash book and the salary statement, comprise what we term the full set of financial records. This is the basic set of financial records that you need when you are writing a business plan, when you're going out to seek funding, whether it's through investments, through partnerships, or through a loan from a bank. So what the cash flow statement does is that it helps you to measure how money is moving into and out of your business. It really reflects something called your short-term cash needs and your ability to meet those needs. So what that really gets to is, for example, let's say you need money to purchase some new equipment. Now, if you have money available in both your checking and your savings account, that money is what we call liquid. It's easily accessible. You can take the money out of your account and you can go and purchase whatever equipment you need. Now, if your money is locked up in property or it's locked up in things like bonds, then it means that this money is not as accessible. It will take a significant amount of time before you're able to get access to that money, and it may affect your ability to meet these short-term cash needs. Then we move on to the balance sheet. What the balance sheet does is it helps you to really assess the assets and liabilities of your business. In accounting terms, the balance sheet always has to balance. That is, your net assets have to equal your net liabilities, so that your assets have to equal your liabilities, so that your net assets are zero. Now, a bit more explanation on that. So assets refer to those things that add value to your business. These are the things sort of that you own and you can use as collateral, or you can use to sort of leverage value for your business. An example would be property that you own. For example, you may have some treasury bills. You may own stock in another company. Liabilities, on the other hand, are things that you owe to people. So if you have shareholders in your business, you owe them dividends. So that would be a liability on your part. If you've taken out a loan to finance your business, you do have to pay back that loan at some point in time. So that, again, would be classified as a liability. Now, moving on to the income statement. Now, I know for lots of small business owners, this is probably what's going to be the most relevant statement, because it tells you what your operating performance is. And it lets you know how you're doing profit-wise. Are you making a profit or are you making a loss? What kinds of margins are you making? And even sort of, going back and sort of really beginning to dig through things, there's some costs associated with selling the products or services that you offer. How do those costs measure relative to the revenue and the profits that you're bringing in? And these are all things that can be pulled from the income statement. So going back to sort of our approach and how we simplify the bookkeeping process. Again, we really focus on having you enter basic revenue, salary, and expense information. We know lots of people don't have an accounting background, don't have experience with accounting software, don't have experience with tools like Excel that generate these kinds of things for you. So we've really aimed to break down the process and make it as simple as possible. So by entering this basic information, the system ends up generating the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flow. Now, the income statement and the cash flow are generated in full, but there's a small caveat about the balance statement. So assets and liabilities, as I mentioned, make up the balance statement, and these vary greatly across industries and across companies. So we would be doing you a great disservice if we were to tell you that we could create something generic that would work across businesses and across industries. That's not the case. What we do, however, is provide the tools and the building blocks to help you build out your balance sheet. You can then go on to consult with an accounting professional to complete that particular statement. But again, even if that's what you choose to do, it cuts your costs significantly because you don't have to have somebody on staff to consistently keep and review your records, and you don't have to outsource to somebody to do the records for the entire year because you have done the majority of them, with the exception of the balance sheet. Now moving on to the record creation exercise. So this is the exciting part. This is where you get to go forward and create your Start Smart accounts and begin creating records on your own. So we're going to do some records online, which is sort of our main form of entry, and then we're going to do them via SMS as well to give you a feel for how that works. So if you'll give me a moment to switch to my browser. Now, back to the Start Smart homepage. So if you don't have an account, you would click on Create an Account here, and then you would enter your first name, your last name, company information, your email address, accept the terms of service, enter this code so we can make sure you're a human being and not a robot, and then submit. And your account information will be emailed to you. Please do check both your inbox and your spam box for the information, and then you can log in. On your first time logging in, you'll be prompted to change your password. Please choose something secure. Both our online and our SMS systems are both completely secure. We have SSL certificates to really make sure that we're protecting our clients. At the same time, though, it's your responsibility to make sure that you are entering records in a secure location. If you're somewhere in a public place where somebody's looking over your shoulder, that could breach confidentiality and end up exposing your records to people. You should also be careful with who you choose to share your passwords with, so they can't get into your account and create all sorts of mischief. Now, one important thing to remember is that we do not allow multiple people to create sort of a whole plethora of accounts for their companies. What we do allow, however, is collaboration under one administrator, and this helps to keep things organized for us as well as the businesses that we work with. By doing things this way, appointing one administrator to sort of be the one to grant permission to all those who want to create accounts, we ensure that nobody is keeping a secondary set of books for your company and using them for other purposes than what you deem to be the right reasons. So once you nominate an administrator to sort of lead your account creation process and they create accounts, when they first log in, they are then able to add additional accounts within the company. So what I'm going to do is, I already have an account, so I'm just going to log in. And once I log in, it brings me to something called the dashboard. Now, what the dashboard does is it provides a visual summary of all the records that I've entered to date, so salary, revenue, and expense. As I mentioned earlier, if you're the administrator for your company and you want to create an additional account, you can go to the User tab, then create a new user account, and then grant them a certain level of access. So we have Supervisor and we have View Only as our two main levels of access. You may want somebody to be able to access the accounts but not make changes to it and only be able to view records, in which case you would make them View Only. Or you may want the person to also have those record editing capabilities. So you would give them Supervisor status. You can go in and change this at any time. They will be sent an email just as you were and be prompted to log in and change passwords. So you can always go ahead, go in and edit things and make whatever modifications are necessary. You can track when they last logged in. And then, of course, for your records, when you created it and who these various accounts are for. You can also disable these accounts as necessary, edit them, as I mentioned earlier, or completely delete them. So let's move back to the dashboard and move to our record creation process. So what we're going to start with is, I'll quickly walk you through the salary records. So as you can see, this is my salary dashboard. It tells me what a particular record was created for, so the month it was created for, in use. As I mentioned, we can have multiple users within a company account, so it's helpful to see whether or not somebody's already editing the document, and that bars you from going in and doing the same, so there's no confusion. It tells you when it was last modified, who it was last modified by. This again increases accountability within your company, and it shows also when the record was created. You can choose to download and print the records in PDF form. You can edit the records, or you can delete them. And then, of course, the Create New button just allows you to create records. You select a month and a year for which to create those records. You can choose anything from the present month backwards, meaning that you can't create records for a future month. So we are in May right now of the year 2013. I can't create a record for July 2013 because we're not there, but I can create one for January 2013 because that's already passed. So opening up a salary record so that you can have a look at what it appears as. You put in the last name, the first name, the base salary of the person. If there's back pay due, let's say last month you weren't able to pay them, you can record that here. And if there are any reimbursements due, did the person take a taxi to run a company errand? Did they go and buy something to run for the company? These are all things that you can record here, and it gives you their gross income. Now, here, gross income means that we have not made deductions for a SNIT or made deductions for income taxes. The reason being, we are just really trying to give you a high-level overview of how things work. So again, depending on how you run your business, you would then have to move forth to be compliant with SNIT and IRS. We are not agents of either of those two agencies, so that responsibility solely lies with you, and we do not share any information with them, unless, of course, we end up being legally obligated to do so. But the responsibility, for the most part, lies with you to do that. So you can choose to delete records. When you scroll down, you can then save the document, save whatever changes you made, and then go ahead and close it. An additional thing you can do is if these aren't enough rows for you, you can go ahead and add more. So moving to our revenue dashboard. Again, a very similar structure to the salary dashboard. So I'm going to go ahead and click Edit so that we can go in and edit a sales and revenue record. Now, this is a little bit different in structure because transactions are tied to particular dates. So what it allows you to do is enter the date for the transaction, say what the item is, say what the unit price is, say the number sold, and revenue is calculated for you. Now you'll notice that we have columns for payment status and client. So in the payment status column, you can go ahead and say whether or not the item has been paid in full, or if a balance has been paid and the remainder will be paid on a different date. This is really about helping you sort of track the money that you're making in your business and ensuring that all money is collected in a timely manner. You can also record information about your clients. Let's say, for example, you have a client that you do 60% of your business with. That's an important thing to note so that if at some point you want to offer them rewards, you're able to do so on the basis of how much business they've done with you. Another great thing with the sales and revenue sheet is that it enables you to be able to create subcategories. So let's say, for example, I have sold a number of books, but I have different titles within my book series, but I don't want to have to enter them as separate records in my main sales and revenue sheet. So I create a subcategory. I enter the date, I enter the item, and then I click on the button that says Sub. Now the Sub button brings me to a sheet that looks very similar to my main sales and revenue sheet, but it has the title of what my subcategory is. Now, as you can see here, I've entered information on what those items are. I have two books called Start Smart and another one called Build a Business. I enter the unit prices of each. I enter the quantities sold. As with the main sheet, I can enter payment status and client information. I then save and then move on to close out of the document. Now keep an eye on this $295.50 number here. That is the total for this category. And when I move back to my main sheet, I notice I have that same total right here. So it's a very useful functionality for if you want to group certain categories of expenses. Now, revenue, sorry, we were looking at revenue in that particular instance. The expense sheet follows the same exact format, the only difference being in the column that says client under revenue and expenses, we would have it as vendor. So you can identify the vendors that you do the most business with and hopefully be able to negotiate discounts with them based on the volume of business that's done. So those are the basics of how to create records on StartSmart using the online system. Now, going back to our presentation, you can also submit records via SMS. Now, this is the phone number that you would text those records to. If you're outside of Ghana, it would appear as +233 265 422 388. And then there's a very specific format that we follow. So for revenue, you put in the email address that you registered with. You put in your SMS PIN. Now, going back to the portal, I'll show you exactly how you can create that PIN. So when you go to My Account, you can enter your SMS PIN right here and save it. And now again, this PIN does have to be secure because that's the means through which you are uploading records to your account. We don't allow you to pull records from your account via SMS because of security issues, but you can submit them. So following this specific format, you have the registered email, you have 2 colons, so there's no space between the text here and the colons, but within each little segment you can have spaces. You enter your PIN that you've created, you put REV for revenue, so it knows to go to revenue. You enter the item, you enter the unit price, you enter the quantity, the payment status, and the client name. Similarly for expenses, you have your registered email address, your PIN, you have the word EXP for expense, you list the item, the unit price, the quantity, the payment status, and the vendor name. So that's the record creation exercise. So now we are going to move on to the discussion. So give me one moment to prepare for that portion, and I will be right back with you.